Duggan, he's just going to hoist it down the sideline, one-on-one, and it's caught! Touchdown, there's a flag thrown at the line of scrimmage to Savion Williams. Have an icing on the cake touchdown.
Welcome to the Big 1-2 on 365 Sports.
Howard throws it down the field. On target, Kane Warner. 38-yard score.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Jacob Wilson, right to Ogletree's in Cabo or somewhere like that.
I don't know what's so great about Cabo, Paul.
I don't know. I mean, is it prettier than where we are right now? Yes. Is he working? No. Are we? Sure. But still, I mean, what a football weekend he missed in the Big 12.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, nobody could have predicted a lot of the outcomes that went on in the Big 12 this past week.
No, not at all. The least of which, and you see Kansas State behind me there on the screen, they earned that this week by absolutely dismantling Oklahoma State. I would say piece by piece, but that means that they took their time doing it. No, they got right to it.
Yeah, they got right to the point, and it didn't even look remotely like Oklahoma State was ever in this game. They crushed their spirit early, and it just got worse from there.
Yeah, it got really bad from there. When Deuce Vaughn took off on that run, that made it 21-0, I believe, at the time. When Deuce Vaughn had that long run, Oklahoma State has had games this year where they've been down by 14 points. So they've been down a little bit. You would have seen some fight back in them. It looked like that was the moment they were like, not today for us, man. It's just not going to happen. Spencer Sanders looks really banged up. He's really gotten through some things, and he's not the only one on that Cowboys roster that is fighting through some things. And Will Howard added a dimension with throwing the ball that the Kansas State offense didn't have with Adrian Martinez. They've got a nice little 1-2 punch there. I don't think he's Tim Brando was on the show earlier today, and he said he maybe while he pipped Adrian Martinez. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think they don't have to rush him back. Even this weekend, so they don't have to rush Adrian Martinez back, and they can take him as it comes, because Will Howard really, for the most part, has showed out really well in the two games he's played.
Yeah, I think in the two games he's played, he's actually looked better than Adrian Martinez as a quarterback as a whole, because his ceiling as a passer the past 2 weeks has been much higher than Adrian Martinez's ever was during his time starting for the Wildcats.
Yeah, and look, I think that I think Oklahoma State was they were bound to lose another game because you can't win when you're that banged up.
Yeah,
but this happening this way. Now, I don't think there's larger things going on here. I don't think this is, ultimately a bigger problem. But the problem is that the league doesn't take a timeout for you so that you can, heal your boo-boos. You just can't do it. And so Mike Gundy and his staff have to really reboot quickly, because coming around this week, it's very possibly Jalen Daniels again, maybe for Kansas. And we don't know, and they're going to play that close to the vest all week, but they got to go to Kansas. They're very wounded right now, and Kansas could be getting healthy coming off of a bye. And if this winds up somehow being a battle of the backups, then that probably favors Kansas much more than it does Oklahoma State.
Because theirs have more reps right now.
Yeah,
and it really makes us realize the importance of depth.
Yeah, and week to week, I mean, this league just changes and changes and changes. Except for one thing, it didn't change at the top. TCU withstood, the Mountaineers in Morgantown are a lot different, and they withstood an onslaught. But ultimately, that's the best team in the conference right now. They're playing like the best team. They've come back and won when they needed to come back and win. They've made plays when they needed to. They've blown people out. They've done they've won every which way that they can. And how they overcame, an off-kilter game, because realistically they should have beaten West Virginia worse than they did.
Yeah.
But to go to a tough place to play on the road after, the big wins that they've had in a road against a team that they should have beaten worse than they did, and then still win the game and that fashion, I think it says a lot about TCU and their ability to withstand, every opponent.
Yeah, and TCU still sitting there at 7. I get it, even though we all kind of agree that there's a little bit of bias in the way that those polls are voted on, but they have shown that they are great, but they are not unbeatable. And like they kind of let West Virginia have hope for this entire game. The 41-31, that doesn't really illustrate how the game went because that last touchdown that TCU scored was last seconds. It was just, that fourth down, throw the ball up and see what happens. And then that padded the stats a little bit. But this TCU team has shown, and they did it against Kansas State too. Like they had to come back against them. And so I'm really interested to see because like you've been saying all year, everyone's going to take a loss. Everyone's going to beat up on everyone. But TCU, who's going to do it to them?
Yeah. I think one of the bigger issues that comes out of this game for me is not even with TCU. Look, the polls are going to come out tomorrow, the first CFP, and there's going to be people all over the country all up in arms because somebody's ranked too low. And it might be TCU. But I'll tell you this, what they say tomorrow has really no bearing on what they say at the end of the year because they'll say something that says, well, we put TCU below this team because of, the Gorman Kendallson Index, which is obviously everybody knows this. And they're like, I don't know what that is. And they're like, well, they didn't score enough points with 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter of their first 3 games. So obviously they're not as good. And you're like, well, I mean,
people will cherry pick any kind of stats to justify their vote.
They're splitting hairs. They say, well, what about this team that's never led in the third quarter? They're like, don't ask me a follow-up.
Did you know TCU's they don't have as many players with girlfriends on their team. We can't vote for them.
Yeah, exactly. But like I would think that if they were, like at a press conference for, like a big corporation that had a scandal, they'd be like, I will answer all your questions, but no follow-ups.
Yeah.
So one question. Thank you. Let's go. So that's how it works. The College Football Playoff Committee. Thank God that's going to be going away. Well, I mean, there'll still be a committee, but there'll be more reason to it with the, they don't have to.
There'll be 8 fewer fan bases that are complaining about what happened.
Exactly. But the bigger question to me also now comes out, the second biggest is what happens with Neil Brown? Are the Mountaineers treading water with him? And how do you assess where you go moving forward with him?
There's definitely a hole in that boat. And then
but you don't want to be like everybody who just fires a coach real quick when maybe there's some things going on that we don't see. But I've been on a lot of West Virginia podcasts, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And I just get the feeling that he is not, I think they've got a case of the Matt Browns there. That was at Tech before. Matt Brown's on our show. Matt Wells. Matt Wells is at Texas Tech before Joey McGuire. I think they need some energy there. I just don't think that they feel it with Neil Brown.
No.
And it's not about his football mind or anything else. They just need some juice. They need somebody with...
Even in that Baylor game, like the fan base, everyone there, it was just kind of flat and dead. Everyone was like, oh, here we go again. And then nobody got excited until, whoa, we might actually pull this one off. Yeah. And so, it's just kind of a blah feeling about Neil Brown's status in Morgantown right now. He does have kind of a big buyout if they fire him.
Yeah, he does. I'm sure there's some coal miner maybe Joe Manchin will just pay it off.
I mean, if I was him, unless I was just like super committed to turning this thing around and had a plan to do it, I might just be like, you know what? Instead of making myself look bad in these West Virginia games, I'll just say, can you just give me a payday and I'll go off to Cabo with Royden. Yeah,
exactly. Maybe there's some big coal magnate that can throw some money that way for West Virginia.
It could probably happen.
Yeah. Now, we'll talk about this one first because we're going to have more probably opinions on the Baylor game. But Oklahoma beats Iowa State 27-13. Iowa State falls to 0-5 in the Big 12. Oklahoma looks like they're starting to figure themselves out a little bit. Look, they didn't do that game on offense. Look, they had great special teams. They faked a field goal for crying out loud, and that worked. So they're finding ways to win. Oklahoma's kind of starting to come together. That's who Baylor has they have Baylor this week hosting them. Iowa State, I just feel some sort of way about how do you continue to find ways to
take comfort in knowing that people aren't talking about wanting to hire away Matt Campbell anymore. That's something that you can hang your hat on.
But and then this is all under Matt Campbell, but he's got to look at the way he's coaching offense. And again, they're not going to be able to recruit the kind of dudes that everybody else does. but maybe he's got to look at what they're doing and where their developmental talent comes from. But the one thing they've kind of missed this year is they've had stud running backs for the last couple of years. And, they've got some good players, but I don't think any of these guys are studs like David Montgomery or Breece Hall. Yeah.
No. Like, I think there's something to be said for Iowa State, keeping Oklahoma at 27 points, because we know that Oklahoma is capable of scoring 60. And Iowa State has had a really great defense all season long, but Hunter Deckers and company, they're kind of the way that we were talking about Baylor last week, where they don't really have much of an identity.
Yeah.
Other than that, they have Xavier Hutchinson, who is capable of making a big play. But, Hunter Deckers, he likes to throw interceptions. He likes to miss really easy throws, but then he'll make a really great play. And so they can't really tie this bow together. And that being said, I think that their fortunes will improve this week.
Well, they have West Virginia this week, so that's why. That is the which one of these houses of cards is going to fall over first. And maybe they've played better to me overall week to week than Iowa than West Virginia has, and we'll talk about that. For an 0-5 in they must be the best 0-5 in a conference school in the country right now. Yeah. All right. And then for Oklahoma, I think they're starting to figure things out. They're starting to figure out who they are, or who they can be this year as opposed to who they're going to be in the future. Because this is a team that's been kind of thrown together after the departure of Lincoln Riley, a ton of transfers, a ton of guys who haven't played together very much. They're now through 8 games at 5-3. They're starting to figure each other out. They're starting to maybe figure out Brent Venables' defensive scheme. We'll see which Oklahoma shows up this week at home in Norman against Baylor. We'll see which Baylor shows up too. Those schools, Baylor and Tech, were kind of like that, and Oklahoma and Baylor to some degree, although Baylor in their losses hasn't been boat race like Oklahoma has twice.
Yeah, I think it bodes well for them too.
Yeah, so we'll see about that, but I do think Oklahoma's playing better, and Dylan Gabriel kind of changes everything. Even on an off day, their offense can still function if he's back there. Baylor and Texas Tech in Lubbock on Saturday night. This game, I could not, again, I said it many times, I could not wrap my head around how Baylor was going to match up against Tech, seeing as what Baylor did the worst up until that point would not match up well against what Tech did the best, and they flipped it on its ear completely. Just absolutely turned it on its ear. The defense that we saw last year was back. They were getting after the quarterback, creating turnovers, sacking the quarterback, and dominating with the RVO, the reliable, violent offense. And Joey McGuire, maybe thought that the student would become the teacher. Well, at least not for another year. And there were a lot of things I didn't get that they were doing in that game. I don't know what Tyler Shuck brings you in that moment.
No.
I know you're trying to change things up, but I think you gotta ride with Baron Morton, come sink or swim, and let him fail a little bit.
Yeah, let him fail. Let him get some reps. He's a young guy, and anyone with eyeballs watching this kid knows that he is very, very talented.
Yeah.
And I think getting him the rep, even when you're down, even when it's looking
and he was having a rough day.
He was having a rough day, but I don't even know if that was really on him, because there were plenty of moments where he took what Baylor gave them, including that touchdown run that, was very, that was in the third quarter. And
the third quarter, you sit around thinking oh, here it goes again, where
yeah, exactly.
Baylor cannot, stand on the accelerator and get this done. I mean, let's be honest. It was starting to feel like, okay, well,
yeah,
here they go.
We're in for another nail biter at the end of the game, just like they were against Kansas. But like I've been saying all year, Baylor needs a pass rush. Every team needs a pass rush, but this team especially, they were not putting pressure on any quarterbacks this year. And then you go and do it against a freshman, and look, you get 5 interceptions out of it from 5 different defensive backs.
Yeah. And look, at the schedule kind of works out for Baylor defensively this week, and we'll talk about it in our previews in the last segment. But honestly, look, you get a spread offense here with Zach Kitley. You get Jeff Lebby's offense this week. So as the defense, that what you have to do. You have to take them out of running plays as fast as they want to, slow them down, time of possession, attack a weak defense, and you can win that game. So Baylor matches up better with Oklahoma than I even thought that they would after watching this Texas Tech game. And it's just because they finally were able to do on both sides of the ball exactly what everyone expected them to do.
Yeah, I kind of see team-wise Oklahoma as Budweiser and Texas Tech is Bud Light. That's kind of how I'm seeing this right now.
Yeah, and to do that in Lubbock in the 21-point fourth quarter and just to put them away. And that was, Joey McGuire said it was a big opportunity that they missed in Lubbock on Saturday night. When we come back, I want to talk about Kansas State some more a little bit. I want to talk about what Chris Klieman's done and what we can expect from them. And are they the favorite now? I think you have to say they are, to be at least one of the teams in the Big 12 title game at Arlington. Of course, again, it can all change down the line, and we'll see. There's 4 games left for everybody in the season as we head down the home stretch. This is the Big 1-2. I'm Paul Catalina. That's Jacob Wilson. Jack McKenzie producing. Roy Dougletree is on vacation. He'll be back next week. More next.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Welcome back to the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie producing. And look, K-State's on the monitor this week for a reason. 48-0. Pants down spanking.
Beating the preseason favorites to take the Big 12 title.
Yeah, beating Oklahoma State. I think the media, we voted Baylor in, but yeah, I mean, like, there's, one of the two, like, and again, the two teams everybody thought it was going to be, again, Oklahoma State and Baylor in a rematch, are now on the outside looking in while they do have a chance to get themselves back in there. They've got to get some losses from teams. And Kansas State, I'm very impressed, and I've always been impressed with Chris Klieman. That's the perfect hire to take over for Bill Snyder. And the fact that they can go in there with Adrian Martinez, who was just all over the place in Nebraska, and win games like they do. And then Will Howard, who his first couple of years was kind of thrust into action when he wasn't ready, can come in and play like he has.
Yeah, it's been very surprising.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it was week 3 when they lost to Tulane. Everyone was saying, like, oh my God, this team sucks. Like, Tulane, really? And then fast forward a couple of weeks, and Tulane is actually looking pretty good.
Tulane would be the group of 5 team that probably makes the playoff if it was the 12-team playoff. So that's how good Tulane and Willie Fritz have been, especially on defense. And those two teams, knocking heads. Adrian Martinez has found himself, and now he's found himself out of the lineup because he's injured. Will Howard comes in, and that's a testament to Chris Klieman and his, steady Eddie style of doing things. Look, you're not Manhattan, Kansas is not going to be a place that you're going to be able to sell real easy. They've had a lot of success.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to sell that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's no different than any other. There's some other crappy college towns, and I say crappy college towns because most of them are kind of like when you're an adult or you're somebody who's like looking for things, you would not live there unless you had to, right?
Right.
Like most college towns are places you live there because you have to, because you're going to school there, or you work at the school, or you work around the school based on the school's benefits to that particular industry.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But it's not something like, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, where I'm going to move? Tuscaloosa. It's not how it is. And that's the college football town right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody moves to Athens unless you are involved with the university. Nobody's going to, but it is even more so places like Manhattan that are more remote, right? Most town, like a lot of them are close to somewhere. College Station's somewhat remote, but it's close to places.
Yeah.
Baylor is here in Waco. Waco used to be considered pretty remote, but it's grown quite a bit. And being right in the middle of Dallas and Austin, It's not really that remote. Places like Lubbock, Stillwater, and Manhattan are kind of remote. They're
Are you saying? I thought you lived West Texas. What are you talking about?
You know that I don't.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but there's a lot of things I don't understand. But what he has done there is he's got the personality of that university. I mean, he won national titles at North Dakota State. He knows how to coach winning football. Will that translate to titles nationally? I don't know. Kansas State's been knocking on the door a couple times in their history, so it's not impossible.
I mean, that is Kleiman. He is a guy that I would not be surprised at all if Nebraska at least gave him a phone call.
Well, they should have already years ago. Nebraska should have called at least one of the North Dakota State coaches.
Yeah,
because that would have fit. But I think they as a university thought that they were going to be kind of cool like everybody else and run this cool hip offense. And that's why they went and got Scott Frost, a guy who was the master of the option, but now he was this great offensive coach at Oregon as the coordinator, and then UCF as the head coach, and he was going to come in there. What Scott Frost, and I think, was kind of crushed under the weight of expectations at, you won us a national title, you were here in our glory days. You are the only guy who can bring it back. I think that gets in your head a little bit.
Yeah,
and
Cliff Kingsbury, the same situation.
Yeah. And two, you get a quarterback like Adrian Martinez, who is such a super athlete, but you aren't built enough around him to where your whole game plan in every game is, please go save me. And then Adrian Martinez makes a ton of mistakes, and people get mad about it, but it was the whole thing please go save me. The Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, it's kind of the Tony Romo effect to me.
Yeah.
The Cowboys found themselves so lucky with Tony Romo that they got this really fun quarterback, really good quarterback, near great quarterback. Didn't win enough in the playoffs for me to call him great, but a fantastic quarterback. But they got too much into the, hey, as long as we're within 10 points with 7 minutes left in the game, Tony's going to do something crazy, right? And he did enough. But it's also nice not to put all that pressure on that guy, because then all of a sudden sometimes Tony Romo would do some things you're like, Tony, what are you doing? Well, part of that was not his fault in that the game plan was go be Romo. Yeah. Well, sometimes, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, and especially on a college athlete.
Yeah, and especially on a college athlete. And Chris Kleiman with Adrian Martinez was never going to be that way. It was going to be, you're a great athlete. We're going to use all your athletic skills, and we're never going to put you in a position where this whole game's on you, because this defense is going to be ready to play. And he has them ready to play every single week. Kansas State defense hunts, man.
And it doesn't hurt that they had that, extremely fast hummingbird in Deuce Vaughn there taking
exactly.
carries.
So, that's the other thing is they have Deuce Vaughn. They have him. They have Malik Knowles. Heck, Kurt Warner's kid, Cade, out there scoring touchdowns. Good player. I mean, they're good. They're good across the board. And Will Howard, as the backup, has made them good. And he was patient with Will Howard.
He was.
The couple of years that Will Howard had at the beginning of his career, it would have been really easy for Chris Kleiman to, a guy he recruited really, really hot. They really wanted him to be like, look, it's not working out.
Yeah, why don't you hit the portal?
Yeah, the portal will be great for you. You'll find a great place to play at, Stephen F. Austin or, Not Here University and go. But they stuck with him. They clearly developed him well. And now they're able to put him in situations that he can succeed at, as opposed to, oh, crap, our other quarterback got hurt. Skylar Thompson's out. You ready to go? I don't know, man. So, of course, now part of that is he's been like, that's kind of Will Howard's life, is that Skylar Thompson was hurt. Will Howard had to go in, and now he was just more ready for it. He's hit that maturity level, but that's all due to Chris Kleiman and the staff there. I think that they've done a fantastic job. I think that he's a fantastic coach. And again, really just, level.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kansas State team has been it's been a lot of fun to watch them be good in this past season, because they've had some down years between the Snyder and Kleiman era there.
Yeah. Just go in the chat room really quick. Chris says Iowa State's better than their record. And
That, I was just saying that.
Yeah. Let's see. Wet blanket. The only surprise was the score in that Kansas State game. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, look, Kansas State, if you had told me that game was going to be, 28-24 Kansas State, I'd been like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can see that. But if you had told me it was going to be 48-0, I would not have. I would not have at all. So, no, Paxton, we'll be picking games. By the way, we'll be picking games in the next
segment. Yep.
We'll be picking games. And we've got all Texas in the non-future conference opponent game.
All Texas?
Texas matchup in SMU and Houston. So that's coming up in the next segment. We'll preview the games and then pick them as well. But, yeah, I think K-State's really good. I'm curious to see this. Like, Texas goes in there this week.
Yes, they do.
Coming off a bye. One they've very much needed after what happened in Stillwater to them.
Yeah.
And then K-State comes here to Waco in a couple weeks, a place that they have not been.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they have really struggled in Waco.
And it happens all over the place. Everybody's got one spot. Look, Colin Klein, who's the offensive coordinator now, came down here they were
ranked number one
ranked team in the country.
I was a student.
And a Baylor team that was in a very bad way 3 weeks before they played them. Mm-hmm. College game day was here. It was a whole deal. Baylor stuck it to them.
Yes, they did.
And that was a season-defining win for the Bears that year that wound up being like one of the they went to the Holiday Bowl. They drilled UCLA and Jim Mora Jr. very badly. And then that sprung that team onto back-to-back conference titles the next 2 years with Bryce Petty quarterback. But, yeah, Nick Florence and the Bears, they were in a bad way. And then woke up right before that Kansas State game. And then after that, they were just a bullet train the rest of the year.
That was the emergence of Lake Seastrunk that season, even though he didn't live up to what he promised to be his full potential. It was still exciting to see him run the ball the way he did for Baylor.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, the preview and the picks. Royden's not here. He doesn't get to pick games. I was going to let him, but no. If he's going to be in Cabo drinking, what do they drink in Cabo?
Bahama Mamas. Margaritas.
Margarita. I don't know. I mean, like, Hawaii's a Mai Tai. You can get them anywhere, but it's not,
Yeah, I lived in Hawaii.
You know how it is. I was just there. I drank a lot of Mai Tais. I'm not drinking one until I go back because I don't trust the process.
Yeah, I gotta get you on to some fine Hawaiian drinks because there actually are quite a few of them.
Yeah, I know. Well, believe me, I had quite a bit when I was there. When we come back, our picks and the preview. This is the big one too here on 365 Sports.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. You got to wait for the beat to drop to do the rejoins. Yeah, I know, but that's why I'm giving you guys a live. When you guys all in the chat room have your own podcast, don't talk until the beat drops.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, give the people a little bit of taste of music.
Yeah, let it breathe a little bit. So we'll go to our preview and our picks now, which we used to do these in separate segments, but it was superfluous. So we combined them to be more energy efficient.
My vocabulary is not so good. What does that word mean?
That would mean that it was extra. We didn't need to do it.
Oh, okay.
We didn't need to do it. It was redundant. So
Redundant. You're throwing a lot of big ones at me, Paul.
We are trying to go carbon neutral here. So that's my carbon offset is we'll just do the same segment together as opposed to two different versions of the same thing.
All right.
It was like telling jokes without the punchline.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're like doing these previews, and then we go to another segment and we say, "Hey, you remember we just did those things? I'll list off the punchlines to this." You wouldn't like that. It was all setups and no punchlines.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for bombing, Paul.
Exactly. I've seen many people do it over my time. All right, so this week in the Big 12, we will go in chronological order of the times the games kick off.
Sounds good.
And then we'll throw in the SMU and Houston game at the end. Doesn't matter when they play that one, although I do think it might be a night game because that's the last one because the Houston's not in and SMU's not coming. So, but Houston is the new team, and that's what we do every week. So we get 5 games. Everybody's done with their buys. So we're in the home stretch. So we've got 5 games to pick in the Big 12, and then, of course, the SMU and Houston game. So far, the picks, all you need to know is that I have not lost one, and Royden has missed them all. And so Jacob gets to take over that spot. We're not putting up the records. We're not letting you fact check. If you'd like to go back and fact check through all the episodes, feel free if you've got the time. I will not debate any of the information because it's on video.
I mean, I'm only going to have 1 week's worth of picks to scrub through, and so if I win, I'm not going to let you hear the end of it next week. I'm just letting you know.
So, all right. So let's start off Texas Tech at TCU, the 11 o'clock kick. This is the big noon kickoff game for Fox this week. Jacob, Texas Tech will play better this week than they did last week.
They have to.
But TCU, far, far too good, I think, and a bad matchup for this defense. They've got too many weapons. Max Duggan's still locked in. I think that the Horned Frogs win this one at home and win it somewhat comfortably. But Tech will fight and scratch and claw. That was the first time this year that Tech really got ripped apart.
And it didn't really feel like a blowout, even though the score kind of reflected that. It was more of just kind of the decision that they made at the end of the game to have Donovan Smith in there and then Tyler Shuck, and then all of a sudden Baylor had that humongous lead.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to get blown out by TCU. The only way that they have a chance of winning is if Baron Morton comes out and has the game of his life, and Big 12 newcomer of the week, maybe offensive player of the week. He'll need a performance like that for the Red Raiders to really have a chance. But like you said, TCU is just a little too good for this one.
Yeah, and it's in Fort Worth, so
Yeah.
Tech is not. It's not one away from the friendly confines.
Yeah, they're
of Jones AT&T.
9.5 point favorites.
Yeah, I tend to lean that might be about right for TCU this week. Baylor at Oklahoma. 2 weeks ago, I was picking Oklahoma. This Baylor team was in a bad way. Oklahoma was starting to figure themselves out. They just scored 52 points. I thought oh man, oh gosh, I don't know how this may match up. I don't think this is good. They've got to go to Norman, a place they have won before, but not a whole heck of a lot.
No.
Classically, I think Oklahoma won like their first 40 games against Baylor over the history of 50 years. It was ridiculous. Before Baylor started actually beating them, and then going to Norman and beating them. But after what Baylor did this week, I'm picking Baylor to beat Oklahoma. I think that they know how to match up against an offense that's very similar in maybe not in exactly what they're doing, but it's in that same tree.
Yeah.
And it's similar in goal in that they want to run the no huddle. Once the clock gets just a couple seconds under 20, they want to be able to snap that ball and do it again and again and again. And if Baylor can make you slow it down, I'm still not sold in that Oklahoma defense, especially with Baylor being able to run right at them. I think it's a bad matchup for Oklahoma. I think Baylor wins this.
This was the hardest one for me to pick because, like you said, they're both going up in terms of how they're trending. But when I saw Baylor look as good as they did last week, and I thought about how Oklahoma is probably a better version of Texas Tech, like just the way that their teams have with their strengths, I just couldn't bring myself to pick Baylor this week. I would need to see a defensive performance from Baylor in multiple weeks in a row in order for me to feel confident in picking them against a team like Oklahoma with what they've got going on with Dylan Gabriel. But that being said, it's a 3.5 point spread. I bet Baylor covers. I bet it's really close. And I'm also smashing that over under. It's 57.5. That seems low to me.
Yeah. Okay, so you're taking OU. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Way to be not a homer. Good job, Jacob. Proud of you. Oklahoma State at Kansas. This is the one I had the hardest time with because I have no idea who's going to play for either team. But I do think that the goal has always been to get Jalen Daniels back for Kansas after the bye.
Yeah.
He's at practice. Nobody knows what he's doing, but he's there, and he's in pads, and he's wearing a helmet and all those
Is
things.
he throwing?
Don't ask me that question. That I don't know. But I like Jalen Daniels coming back this week, giving Kansas a little bit of mo and winning this game at home and them getting to a bowl against a wounded animal in Oklahoma State who can be dangerous. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they're going to get that healthy, even though they're not going to do they say they're not going to do the things they did last week. They still had a reason to try to necessitate that, and that is the health of their team. I think that they go in and get Oklahoma State and maybe even effectively knock Oklahoma State out of this race this week. I'm taking the Jayhawks.
I mean, I think if it's not Kansas, it'll be another team that Oklahoma State loses to later on. That being said, I took Oklahoma State primarily just because this is a very capable team, very capable of winning against a team like Kansas, and I made my pick on the assumption that Jason Bean will be taking the snaps for Kansas. And I just don't think that Mike Gundy, I think he's a good enough coach to where you won't see a performance remotely like that 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, no. I think this will be back and forth. I just think that Jalen Daniels has got some magic about him.
Oh, yeah.
And coming back, that's my difference in this
If
game.
I knew today that he was going to be playing, I would pick Kansas.
Now, I will say this. If this winds up being Jason Bean versus Gunnar Gundy, I will still pick Kansas. Now, if it winds up being Jason Bean versus Spencer Sanders, I will feel less confident about my pick of Kansas. Still picking the Jayhawks, though. Jacob's going with the Pokes. West Virginia at Iowa State. Jacob, is this the week?
I think this is the week that Iowa State gets the monkey off their back.
I agree with you. I think that it being at home, they desperately need this win. Iowa State knows who they are. West Virginia doesn't, and I think that will come through this week, and they'll be able to defend West Virginia's offense pretty well, and I think that they will score barely enough points to do this. Yeah. My friend Adam Batchelor, who is an Iowa State grad, Sent Smokey and I a text the other day, said ever since they rubbed up against Iowa, they've not been able to shake that off. And it's been very true. The whole state of Iowa, like I know it would be worse, but it's like the cornfields have like boll weevils or something. That's common.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
I mean,
Corn worms. I don't know what
you
they
look
have.
at Iowa State with an 0-5 record, and you forget the good things about their team, which is that they have a fantastic defense, 16 points a game allowed, and that says something. And they're 7-point favorites at home.
Yeah,
and like I could see them covering that. I don't think West Virginia has enough offensive firepower to get past this team.
No, I think this is the week. This is the week. And they improved to 4-5 in the year. Needing to go 2-1 down the stretch is going to be really hard for the Cyclones. And the second hardest game of the week for me to pick is Texas at Kansas State. Texas coming off the loss and a bye. I picked Kansas State for 2 reasons. 1, they are at home. 2, the way that defense played last week was a statement game. I think they can do that to Texas. I don't think they're going to shut anybody out. I think that's over. I think this Texas offense is too good for that with Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson and Xavier Worthy. But I do think that they can get to and rattle Quinn Ewers enough to make a difference in the game. I like Kansas State here in an absolute slobber knocker tight game. I'm taking the Power Cats, Emaw, and all that stuff. That's what I'm doing this week. I feel less confident about this pick than anyone other than the Kansas game. The Sunflower State's really messing with me this week.
Yeah, it is.
But I am picking Kansas State at home with that defense to continue this role because I'm starting to think that there's something a little bit special about this team.
Well, I took Texas, and the reason for that is because they had that bye week. And I think Quinn Ewers, we forget because of how good he is that he's a freshman, and that showed against Oklahoma State. But I think you give a kid like that and the other playmakers that Texas has a week to prepare. And not just that, but they have the game film from this Oklahoma State win that they had. And so they really have ample time to figure out a good game plan for this Kansas State team. And that's the main reason why I picked them. I think it'll be close, but ultimately I'm going with the Longhorns.
All right. So we differ quite a bit, Jacob.
Yeah.
We differ quite a bit. This is exciting. It's exciting that we have this. It's not just a society of mutual agreement. We don't have that here. That's good. Houston at SMU at Ford Stadium in Dallas. A weird president to name your stadium after since he's not from your state.
What president was it?
Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford. Well, he was a football player.
Yeah, but not there. I mean, wasn't particularly, a well-accomplished president or vice president either. I mean, Watergate and all. So I don't know. Some SMU fans are going to have to explain that to me. Maybe he went and got a graduate degree there. I'm going to look this up.
Maybe they just really wanted to name it after Nixon, and they said, no, we can't do that. We'll just give it to the guy who pardoned him.
Yeah. Let's see. Gerald Rudolph Ford. Early life, college and law school.
He's a Michigan guy, right?
Yeah. 1934. That's just a long time ago. Hold on. He went to Yale Law School. So I don't know. I don't know why Ford Stadium. Somebody's going to have to give me the history on that. I guess I could Google that as well. But I was just looking up facts on Gerald Ford. That's what you get for the big one, too.
You get history?
You get presidential fun facts. Mm-hmm. That Gerald Ford, the stadium at SMU, is named after him. But, I mean, I don't know what he has to do with it. So maybe somebody in the chat room can do that. But Houston versus SMU, I am taking the Ponies. Jack?
Sorry to interject, but it's Gerald J. Ford Stadium, named for a billionaire banker who provided most of the funding.
Oh, okay. There we go. Gerald J. Ford. Okay, thank you. All right.
Like I needed a reason to feel dumber, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. I feel pretty dumb right now. So, would you go by Gerald Ford, though?
I mean, you might want to include your middle initial.
I mean, it says it here. I just, it didn't occur to me. But like, would you go by Gerald or would you be like Jerry Ford?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
it's a matter of personal preference.
I guess so. I mean, maybe it's the Office Space.
I mean, if my name was Orenthal James Wilson, I wouldn't. I'd probably the Orenthal J or something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily want to.
I would maybe err on the Office Space, the Michael Bolton thing. Like, why should I change when he's the one who sucks? Kind of a thing. But in this game at Gerald J. Ford Stadium, I am taking SMU. They've played pretty well the last couple weeks. Houston, I don't like them on the road. They've played better than they did at the beginning of the season, but I don't like anything that's going on there right now. I don't like. They're too all over the place. Clayton Tune's a good quarterback, but they've been too inconsistent. I'm taking the Ponies here at home.
I mean, they've actually won their last 3 games though, Paul, and it was a really, really rocky start, and everyone was calling for Dana Holgerson, and everyone was really worried that this team wasn't going to be what it was.
Two of those games were against Navy and USF. So,
I mean,
yes, they should have, but
handled them just fine and almost beat a fairly good Tulane team that we've talked about. And so I didn't make my picks with the intention of disagreeing with you on every single one, but I picked Houston mainly because I think that Clayton Tune is on a good tear right now. These teams are very, very similar when you look at the total yards allowed per game, total yards for their offenses per game. It's so incredibly close. Points per game, Houston has 33, SMU has 35. They both have – this is a fantastic quarterback matchup, by the way, Clayton Tune versus Tanner Mordecai. But ultimately, I went with Houston simply because I think that they are finding themselves again. It might not be as pretty as we thought it would be, but I think that Houston pulls this one out.
So, of the games that we've picked,
I think we only agreed on one.
Agreed on one, which was TCU winning. You picked Oklahoma.
Oh, no, we agreed on Iowa State, too.
And Iowa State. So, we've agreed on 2. So,
there will be a clear winner and a clear loser.
A good shot that you go 2-4 this week, my friend.
Same with you.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying there's a good shot that you go 2-4 this week. I'm never wrong. We just go back and look. But thank you to everybody who's watched. Thank you to everybody who will watch later on when you pick the segment. Thanks to Jack McKenzie. Thanks to Jacob Wilson. Thanks for Roy Ogletree, even though he's not here. I just feel like thanking him.
Why would you thank someone who doesn't show up for work?
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's in Cabo. I mean, clearly we let him out of the closet this week. He's earned that. So he's in Cabo having a big old time. And
yeah, letting him out of the closet, going to Cabo, having a big old time. That means a lot of different things, Paul.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. We usually store him in the closet. Sorry. I guess I hear it now. I'm sure his wife wouldn't like that news, but I think that's who he's there with in Cabo. At least I hope it is. So the next show, Monday, same big 1-2 time, same big 1-2 channel.
Yep.
So we'll be back here. And Jacob, look, if Jacob, I'll say this. If Jacob makes me go 2-4, he will be able to make picks the rest of the season. If he goes 2-4, not till next year.
All right, challenge accepted.
There we go. That's the bet. Thanks to Jack McKenzie for sticking around and producing. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy football. Enjoy the World Series when it starts. It's rained out now, so hopefully you can pick up some of you baseball fans tonight because you had nothing else to do. This is the big 1-2 on 365 Sports.